We can turn our attention to Zechariah 12, verses 2, that talks about someday Jerusalem will be a cup of drunkenness to all the surrounding nations. We should probably go to Zechariah 12 for a moment, because we need to talk about how the Israeli Defense Forces get involved in this process.
The burden of the word of the Lord against Israel. Thus says the Lord God, who stretches out the heavens, lays the foundation of the earth, and forms the spirit of man within him. Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of drunkenness to all the surrounding peoples when they lay siege against Judah and Jerusalem. And it shall happen in that day that I will make Jerusalem a very heavy stone for all peoples. All who would heave it away will surely be cut in pieces, though all nations of the earth are gathered against it. In that day, says the Lord, I will strike every horse with confusion, and its rider with madness. I will open my eyes on the house of Judah, and will strike every horse of the people with blindness. And the governors of Judah shall say in their heart, the inhabitants of Jerusalem are my strength, in the Lord of hosts their God. In that day I will make the governors of Judah like a fire pan in the woodpile, and like a fiery torch in the sheaves. They shall devour all the surrounding peoples on the right hand and on the left, but Jerusalem shall be inhabited again in her own place, Jerusalem.
And what he's saying is that the surrounding people are going to come at some point and try to lay siege on Judah and Jerusalem. Now, of course, they've had wars, these Arab countries, the surrounding peoples, on the right hand and on the left side he talks about, have had wars and stuff, but I think it's going to come to a climactic concluding one, where ultimately the IDF, we'll talk about that in verse 4 through 6, will actually take them out, surrounding peoples around them. But verse 3 does talk about, it'll be like a heavy stone, a burdensome stone to all those nations that try to meddle with Jerusalem and that sort of thing. We see that's going on right now. I mean, Trump moved the embassy to Jerusalem. You know, it may have a deeper meaning with respects to dividing of God's land down the road by the international community. But we got Joe Biden coming on as a president presently as we shoot this. He's wanting to maybe go back to the two-state solution. His predecessors with Obama, through Clinton, way back when, those failed attempts to make a two-state solution. But there's meddling going on with Jerusalem, which of course Jerusalem, they want that to be the capital of the Palestinian state. America's moved its embassy over there. That's kind of who knows how that's all going to end up. But the point being that they're going to try to meddle, and they're warned, don't meddle. It'll be like a heavy stone falling on you internationally. But what he goes on and says, when they lay siege on Judah and Jerusalem, the governors, and the Hebrew word is Elufim, used there. That's the name for lieutenants in the army right now, the Elufim, right? So you're talking about the captains, in some translations, the IDF. Is going to be a battle with the surrounding people. It'll be it's used as a fire pan in the woodpile is the battlefield, and there'll be sheaves and there'll be a fiery torch. Now we know who's going to win that, and Israel represents a fiery torch. It says, "I shall devour them." Okay, and all the surrounding peoples on the right hand and on the left hand, but Jerusalem shall again be inhabited. So in other words, it's going to fail. And I believe the Israeli Defense Forces is one of those prophecies, pre-trib prophecies, are involved in several things, in defending the nation in Psalm 83, taking out Damascus in Isaiah 17, toppling Jordan and Jeremiah, and I think Jordan may be part of this Psalm 83 scenario on the right hand and on the left hand. But there's other ones too in Obadiah that talks about, the Israeli Defense Forces. There's a whole lot of different prophecies that talk about the Israeli Defense Forces, and they're not involved in Ezekiel 38, right? Because that's too formidable of an offense, and America's not involved in that either. But God stops it with fire, hailstone, great hailstone, and brimstone. And so that's a whole different scenario. So the Israeli Defense Forces, my estimation, are here before the tribulation. Ezekiel 37, verses 10 says that it will become an exceedingly great army. We can go through a whole list of different prophecies about the Israeli Defense Forces.
Yeah.
Which we don't need to, but I'm just saying they exist.
Yeah, there's a lot that is there. You've definitely done a lot of work. So you have Israel becomes an exceedingly great army. There's some fascinating things. So far, just for where we've been, the disaster in Iran, the destruction of Damascus, the toppling of Jordan, the terrorization of Egypt, and in that, I don't think we got to in Isaiah chapter 19 where the people of Egypt, they turned to the Lord of Israel because of their terrorization, because of the oppressors that come there also, which I find fascinating in Isaiah chapter 19. Right. And then the final Arab-Israeli war, Psalm 83, the exceedingly great Israeli army